Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monday Night Conscious Community Class at the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy with me, Matthew Brownstein. I appreciate everybody who's getting my reminders on my computer. I appreciate everybody who's been joining me for these classes, for those of you who attend live and those of you who watch the recordings and those of you who help to kind of spread the message of what we're doing here. So tonight's topic, past life regression, reincarnation, and transmigration. All right, so we're going to talk about the practical applications of doing hypnotherapy when we open up to these ideas. Right? If you acknowledge that there's something called spirit, something called soul, that there's something about you which is more than just a body. Right? If you're sitting here now and you're like, well, I'm here now. If you're sitting here now and you're saying, I'm here now, like I hope you'll let tonight be a meditation, really being here now. Because then the question is, who are you? And is there you who's reincarnating? That's a question of life or death, right? In Zen meditation practice, we say to get on that cushion, to sit on the meditation cushion, is a matter of life and death. Depending what stage you're at in your life, depending on how stressed you might be thinking about the topics of life and death, right? There's a lot of challenges occurring in our world right now, and the mortality of the body is always in your awareness to some degree, whether it's other people you watch getting sick and die, or realizing you're doing a human experience too. And that can really be scary. So what do a lot of us do? We tend to try to push it out of sight and out of mind, right? And just survive and get by and be comfortable. But if you have the luxury to stop and worry about your own longevity or mortality, if you've ever pondered the questions of life or death, if you're a thinker, if you ever said there's got to be something more, then you're probably saying, did I exist before this body? Do I exist after this body? Is there an answer to that question? I'm not actually saying I'm giving an answer to that question tonight. I hope you will use this evening's class, and feel free to interact with me if you want to share with the chat pod or ask questions. Use this class as an exploration of self. Let it be a meditation so that you can stop right now and say, who am I? Is there a heaven or a hell after this thing? And is there a me who continues on? Or is it just like when you get anesthesia and you wake up later and that part of your existence wasn't there, right? I had surgery on my wrist for a paragliding accident. And it was very interesting, despite hypnotic amnesia or sleep at night or other altered states that I've had. That experience of surgical anesthesia makes you realize I didn't exist during that period of time, right? So who is this you? Now, why are we talking about this here? Well, we're a hypnotherapy school, so we teach past-life-regression therapy. You can absolutely utilize hypnosis to do something called past-life-regression therapy. Are you actually looking at past lives? There's some evidence that says we are, but it's really just not about that. The question is the modality useful? Is the topic useful? Is it beneficial to talk about who we are? Is it beneficial to question, are you just a body? What is consciousness? When you go into deep trance, you have access to memories. We know that. We know for sure you can use hypnosis to improve memory recall. Well, how far back can you go? There are a lot of people, and I could be preaching to the choir for a lot of our students, a lot of people who believe, yes, you can go very deep into your own consciousness or your own psyche or your subconscious mind or your superconscious mind. Right? There's lots of words for this topic. Either way, you can go very deep into this space inside of you, and it's a place beyond words. Because when you go into deep trance, you're there. There is a you. You could experience such deep hypnosis that you won't feel your body. It's not like anesthesia. What we can do is called full body anesthesia. So we can make it so your body is barely and pretty much not in your awareness. But then you're still there. Now, there's a thinker in there, right? This conscious mind person who's always talking. But in hypnosis, we can get that so quiet and so relaxed that you barely even notice that there's a you there, a thinker. And then people say, oh my God, like, where was I? Well, you're not necessarily in time and space to begin with. Where were you, or when did you exist before? Right? You exist here and now, right? Just being present, you exist here and now. When you go into deep hypnosis, there's a you who's here right now. That you, every spiritual tradition says, is not the body, right? So now we're calling that you soul or spirit. But don't get caught up in the words, because the real important thing is, who are you? Before we go any further, let me just introduce you to who are we. We are Anahat Education Group, and that's the corporate name that kind of houses all of our work. I'll get to some slides in a moment relevant to tonight, so bear with me. Tomorrow night, starting tomorrow night, I am redoing starting again, supporting our Anahat meditation students. You can join me. The Zoom link is onlinemonastery.com. Go there. You can find the link for Zoom. We'll be sending out another reminder email for current students tomorrow. Reminder for self. And basically all through June, every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, we'll be supporting our students. I'll be supporting our students with Anahat meditation teachings. Also, just as things to know, the next hypnotherapy class start date is June 29th. There's still seats. We're enrolling for online for the September class, 100% online. And also our next NOP training is starting pretty much now. You'd have to enroll like now. And then we start the official practical hours on the 18th. So you do some online hours before, and then the class starts on the 18th. If that's too soon for you and you're interested, then we'll be doing it again in January. All right, so here's tonight's topic. Past-Life-Regression, Reincarnation, Transmigration, right? So there's this idea that there's a you who exists now. It's really hard to deny that. If you want to call that soul because you believe it outlives the body, or there's something immortal and eternal about you, then that's pretty easy, right? We can use those words. There are people who don't believe that, right? And we want to honor those people as well. We even have clients who might not believe that. So we have a modality that, if we know our audience, which is believers and non-believers, right? People who believe in a soul and people who don't, right? If you talk to someone who's very scientific about this, well, where's the benefit in the discussion? Exploring the question of who you are is quite beneficial, right? Are you made of Play-Doh or silly putty or DNA? Right? Is your body made of atoms, or is your body made of string cheese? Right? The question of who I am is really crucial to everything that we're doing, because it's a quest for truth. And I'm bringing us back to the idea that there's a truth that's hard to deny, that you're here now. So in deep hypnosis, you plunge into that you. You gain, as I said before, what we call hyperamnesia, which is exaggerated memory recall. One of the first cases of this, some of you may know, happened with Dr. Brian Weiss. With his, he started talking about it in his book, Many Lives, Many Masters. He had a client that he couldn't help make better, so he decided to use hypnotic regression. And as I recall, I read the book over 20 years ago. She goes back to a past life. She doesn't remember any of this consciously. But the lifetime was supposedly the cause of her present-day problems. While in that state, there were other voices that were speaking through her that he called in the book, Many Lives, Many Masters, that there was this higher wisdom speaking through her. So are we tapping into something like really significant when people are in altered states? I don't think that's debatable anymore. If you look at the value of A Course in Miracles or the Abraham Hicks teachings or the Seth materials, I can go on and on. The stuff that we considered channeled, I don't know that a lot of us understand what we mean by the word channeled, but what we're implying is a higher wisdom can come through another human being. That's valuable. Now, can that wisdom give us answers to life and death and whatnot? If you study Buddhism and the deep teachings of those who sat in meditation for countless hours, they were exploring the nature of their soul and how do we overcome pain and suffering, right? That's what it's all about. It's the real questions of life and death. And I don't think those should just be plastered over with belief systems, right? If we can utilize past life regression to explore something important, then that's a value, but we don't want to be delusional about it. So I'd encourage you guys, and depending where you're at with this topic, to consider that our past life regressions are metaphorical journeys. Are they actual history? If you told me about your childhood, it wouldn't be actual history. Memory doesn't work that way. If I said, what happens when you were 5 years old and you had a birthday party? I don't know, maybe you remember I was in New York, we went to the ground round, or I don't remember the exact age, but I can confabulate a memory about going to a restaurant as a kid, and they used to like crack the peanuts or something on the floor of this restaurant, and we opened birthday presents, but now I'm confabulating from memories of my sister's birthday party there that I saw recently on videotape. So memory is a mixture of fact, perception, and pure fantasy. So understand, in a childhood regression, we're not looking at actual history anyway. We are looking at fragments of mental impressions stored over days and days and days of time. And I'm saying it that way because if you consider past lives, if you've existed before this body, maybe you have fragments of other lifetimes lingering, or maybe it has nothing to do with this thing called past life regression or reincarnation. Maybe somehow these memories are just in you. For those who are a little bit on the skeptical side of the discussion, check out the work of Dr. Ian Stevenson, or those of you who are on the really into it side. Dr. Ian Stevenson contributed a lot to this field, but just touching on a little bit of his work, probably the most well-known part of his work, is that he checked out thousands, like 5,000 plus case histories of children who believed that they had lived before because they have memories of their past lives. They're telling stories. They're just kids, but they have these memories. But they also will quite often have birth defects in relationship to what happened to them in a past life, like a kid who was shot in the head in a past life, or that person was shot in the head, and then in this lifetime, that boy has a deformed ear. And he tells this whole story about the traumatic past event that occurred in a past life. However, you can research, you can document this. You can say, is this kid's story true? And you find out a lot of the time that the story is true. So the question is, how did the memory get in there? You could say, well, it's genetic memory, but that doesn't explain the physical deformities all that much, but it could. But either way, we are all the result of the past. Everything that's ever happened, right? The Big Bang and the sun forming in this solar system, and whatever, the sun forming, and then there's the Earth, and now we've got a moon, and now we have water, and now we have all these creatures, right? All of this stuff is happening, and you're part of that stuff. You're the result of everything that's ever been, and you could say everything that ever will be, but really I'm saying from all of the past up to this moment, that karma, that energy brought us to this moment. You're the result of that. You're the result of what you ate yesterday. You're the result of your grandmother's dementia. You're the result of your cousin's irritable bowel syndrome. Everything you've ever experienced contributes to who you are now, right? So where's the value in the past at all? There is no value in the past. What's valuable is that you or your clients were stuck in the past. When we go into hypnosis, into the us, the self that's here now, and we explore that self, we discover there are emotions that don't appear to have a present life cause. Now, if you're really good at hypnotherapy, you can find out that most emotions absolutely have a childhood cause, because it's just 4 major emotions: hurt, sadness, fear, anger, and guilt. That's 5, but hurt and sadness are kind of 1, and then fear, and then anger, then guilt. And then there's the other flavors of emotion, but generally, those are the 4 main emotions. You felt all that in childhood, so you don't have to go back to past lives to find out where your fear came from, right? You had traumatic events in childhood to some degree that caused fear, okay? So if you have fear inside of you and we regress to the cause, whatever comes up needs to be dealt with. If it's an alien abduction memory, I don't know how that got in there. Maybe it was aliens. Maybe you watched too many movies. But either way, There are now mental impressions, memories, mental impressions, like these psychic imprints, if you will, an imprint on the psyche. In Sanskrit, we call that a sanskar, and it's so relevant to tonight's topic. A sanskar, a mental impression. The idea of karma or reincarnation, going from life to life, says you take your sanskars with you. What does that mean? We take our sanskars with us. The consciousness that you are is not pure right now. I mean, it's in its essence, it is pure. Yet it's like a diamond covered in dirt. What is that dirt? The sanskars. So like you could consider the soul to be a perfect diamond covered in dirt. The dirt are the mental impressions accumulated over past experience. So you are here now, you as consciousness are here now, and you as consciousness have memories and beliefs and emotions that seriously influence who you think you are. Human beings are really complex. So this sense of self is really connected to a very complex organism. Yet the model of transmigration says you as consciousness haven't only been human. You have impressions from before human. So what does that mean? It means the consciousness, or let's just say the energy, if you want to use that term, or the atoms, however you want to visualize this, the atoms that make stones, right, the stone is atom, and the atom is stone, right? And what's really inside of a stone? Largely empty space, because what's in the core of every atom? Largely empty space. Whatever that is that became a stone is evolving, right? So something is evolving. Like science says it's evolving. What's the it? Who's evolving? Maybe that's not the right way to ask the question. What's evolving, right? If you don't want to make it a who, make it a what. What's evolving? Well, there appears to be atoms. What are those made of? Subatomic particles. What is that made of? All right, energy, for lack of a better term. So we've got this empty space energy, or this time-space matrix, or the quantum field, whatever you want to call it, because what can we call this? Reality. Whatever it is, it appears to manifest into form and evolve. You are that, right? So let tonight's talk be a direct exploration of self. I'm the evolving consciousness. Now, if you're free to evolve, great. But what if you're stuck in the past with a big part of your psyche? What if the 100% of your available life force, energy, consciousness that's here now, just like a stone has that, but you've got this complex human being, and it has more than just I am stone impressed upon its psyche, right? Think about a dog. A dog is convinced it's a dog, right? That consciousness is doing dog consciousness. We're doing human consciousness. Your consciousness, you are extremely aware of this human. And the human consists of a body, emotions, and the thinking mind, or we could say the conscious and the subconscious mind. That's about it, right? You as a human being essentially are a body with all of its parts, a heart, but really we're just talking about your emotional sense of self, and a mind, right? And that mind could just be attributed to brain because it's just speaking English, right? It's just dealing with largely memories of this lifetime. So the real question is, who is that real deep you that even when the body drops away, you are still there? You want to just explore this topic inside of yourself, like meditate and observe what's going on in there. And you'd be like, okay, here's a body. All right, got it. I got one of those. Is the ghost in the machine, as they called it in the olden days, is the ghost in the machine actually a ghost? Or are you just, meaning, are you a spirit? Or are you just brain impulses? Or are you just neurons firing? If you look from the outside in, it sure looks like there's just a bunch of matter. But when you're inside having the experience, it doesn't feel like that at all. Which experience is more real? The fact that we could probe your brain and find dopamine there and serotonin and all that stuff and say, oh, you're sad because? Maybe you're sad because you're feeling lovable. Maybe you're sad because your dad didn't like you. Maybe you're sad because your husband left you. Like, there's a lot of pain in there. And it doesn't seem to just be in the brain thing, right? It's in the heart thing. So if we really explore who we are, we start talking about a body, meridian systems, chakra systems, and the body includes everything that science would talk about. But a lot of us talk about an energy body and an emotional body, the astral body. We talk about the idea of out-of-body experiences, not just near-death experiences when the brain is freaking out. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to die, and maybe coming up with imagery. There are very valid out-of-body experiences. They're largely subjective, of course, and anecdotal evidence for what we talk about. But I've left my body, I don't know, dozens and dozens and dozens of times, more than I can count, really. I mean, count higher than that, but like almost 100 times if I floated out of my body or something, to some degree or another. You can tell me I was just having a near-death experience or that I am a body. So a lot of us know from our own subjective experience, the evidence is leaning towards my consciousness is more than just a body. My consciousness probably existed before this body, and my consciousness most likely will exist after this body. Okay, so if we're accepting that to any degree, the talk is really easy, right? Okay, you're a soul, you existed before. Right, easy. But what if you don't quite buy into that? Then you have to find, how do you convince your clients this modality of past life regression is valuable? Help them to understand you're stuck in the past. Now, what past is that? The past is only the reality of subconscious memories. There is no past. There's no past right now. There's only now. Like when you're in the now, there's only now. Where's the past? Only in your mind. That's where the suffering comes from. We're not in the present moment. You're not in the love and joy of now. You're scared because you're living in the past, projecting it onto the future, and you skip over the glory of now. So past life regression is another way of saying we're going to regress to the cause of your issues. Now, if it's childhood issues, if those memories come up, we'll deal with them because we as well-trained hypnotherapists know how to do that. If we know how to deal with past life impressions when they come up, then we can free the client from those past impressions. The stories and the deeper levels of things don't matter. All right, people, I want to do past life regression to find out who I was. You can't look in the past to find out who you are because you are not a body. Right? If you lived before, then you're not a body. You went from that body to this body by implicit in the idea that you had a past life means that you left a body and came into this body. So it's more like going to a movie just for fun. Like it's a fun little exploration of the mind. To do that, say, oh, who was I in the past? Oh, I was a samurai warrior in the past. But that's not who you are. And you can actually get caught up in that because your whole life can become about who you were in Japan or whatever, 900 years ago. That's not you anyway. That's now a mental impression in your mind. And after you do a past life regression, it will be there. I have 14 of those in my head. I have mostly men, but I have 2 lifetimes as women. And I could pull up those past life personalities and explore them and get to know them more. Who are they? Well, I don't know. But it's not dissociative identity disorder, right? It's not multiple personalities. It's somebody who's actually just done a lot of past life regression, who has come up with stories, real or, like historical stories or made up stories, but metaphorical journeys for sure, of characters who have had certain traumas or certain great things, wonderful things happen. But your past, if you look at it, will be filled with hurt and pain and sadness. And it's a traumatic past, really. There might be some good things, but if you look at your past lives, the history of humanity has been brutal. And either way, even if you had a nice life, you still suffer from smallpox, bacterial disease, your loved ones dying. It's a tough place here, right? In case you haven't noticed, you're not living in the angelic realms. So being in the earth is a challenging thing. And then the real question is, where's the value in these topics? Getting free is the real value of this topic, not who was I 900 years ago, because you couldn't have been a body anyway. If you're spirit, you've always been spirit. But either way, you've got these impressions now in your mind that you're dealing with as you unfold your psyche in hypnosis, as you get to see what's in there and you look at every nook and cranny and corner and crevice and no stone is left unturned. You look at every single part of your psyche And you liberate that part because you don't want to be trapped back there in the closet as a 5-year-old crying because of what your parents did to you. That part of your psyche has to be liberated. And anybody in the fields of mental health, whatever, will understand that. It's like common sense to understand you can't leave a child suppressed in your subconscious mind. But you have past life personalities suppressed in your subconscious mind. You just want a clean house. So we have techniques to bring stuff to consciousness, whatever it is. Whatever comes up, you deal with it. If somebody says, I think there's an entity attached to me, we deal with it. Is it real? We don't know. But the reality of psychic experience is subjectively what's real for the person. It's called your phenomenological reality. Whatever you're experiencing is not the outside world. It's your internal structure. Your internal structure is not clean or clear. It's filled with sanskars, filled with negative memories, negative emotions, negative beliefs, all sorts of wrong decisions and distorted perceptions and defaulty, the dysfunctional protection mechanisms. We are a mess in the complicated human. It's not like a stone or a dog or a horse, right? So either way, consider stones, dogs, horses, we're all part of this evolving thing. But there's a point in human consciousness where we say, what's going on here? Or I'm going to say, what the hell? What the hell? What's going on here? Why am I even here? Who am I? Is there a me who's here? Did I drop down here? Did I grow out of the earth? Am I the result of sperm and egg uniting? Like, what's going on? Because what happens at that moment in evolution is you become self-conscious. Everything is basically conscious in these models, right? A stone is conscious because the space in the atom is consciousness. You don't have to believe that, but a lot of people put the cart before the horse, or the other way around, to say consciousness emanates form. It's not that form emanates consciousness. So a stone is the consciousness, that energy that's there, that plasmic field, however you want to visualize it, of atoms morphing into a stone, because it's just mostly empty space and vibrating atoms. That being is conscious. And if you could go inside of it, which you can when you leave your body, I'm telling you from out-of-body experiences, I've been inside of other forms. They are pure light and pure bliss and pure joy. Imagine the bliss of a tree. If you think you can feel bliss in meditation, imagine what a tree feels like. Why does life want to do this thing? If it was horribly painful, it wouldn't do this thing. Why are we evolving and striving? Why is life trying to get every possible form? Why are we all desperate to stay alive and not kill ourselves as humans? Because being alive, having this experience is really powerful, right? It's like, that's awesome. But now that you're in a human, you're not just conscious the way a rock or a dog or a cow is conscious. You're self-conscious, and you have the ability to say, who am I? So that's what we're really probing, is that question. Willow said here, I tried to regress once, however, I ended up in a mess. Okay, gotcha. And then don't want to learn it, but I would line up to try it as you just asked, saying, okay, gotcha. And I believe that if it happens, it's souls recognizing souls from another area of time. Okay, gotcha. So yeah, a little trouble getting back to past life where it was a mess. And then, yeah, not sure I'm following you, but I want to acknowledge what you're saying here. So the idea you're talking about, like souls recognizing other souls. Let's talk about that briefly, the idea that there's a you in there. And my experience is when you're out of your body, because even though I'm trying to honor the scientific people, I'm telling you I've had out-of-body experiences. You could say it's just in my brain, but I've had what we call out-of-body experiences. That me who leaves my body is not asleep. I'm more lucid. I'm conscious, and I'm literally feeling vibrations in my body consciously, lying there with the body completely relaxed, pretty much asleep, and basically a theta delta state of consciousness, but still fully conscious. And when there's enough vibration and energy, all the kind of those atoms we were talking about feel like they separate, and the you whose spirit can float out of the body. I'm just telling you, I do that. I know how to do it, and everybody who does it reports the same thing. It's not a dream. There's a you who can project from the physical body. That you, as Willow, you're saying, recognizes other yous, right? So are these souls going from life to life? well, if I can leave my body, if others have left their body, if millions of people have had near-death experiences that came back to talk about it, there's some, and like Dr. Ian Stevens' work and others, there's probably some pretty good evidence to say that there's a you who's going to continue on. Even if there isn't, we need to be saying, oh, what's going on here? Because I exist in the middle of a universe. Like, where are you? You don't know where you came from, and you don't necessarily know where you're going. That should be driving you nuts to get on a meditation cushion and read the books and explore the question. So we can use hypnosis to explore past life stories, and we can look from the beginning of a life to the end of a life, and then we can see what happens next, all right, which is a very interesting question. So I look at a past life, and so what is that? I'm talking pretty deep. So let's talk about basic past life regression. When you regress someone to a past life, they start telling you impressions. First, it's like, all right, I'm outdoors. I am standing in go to one of like my memories. I'm out in a field. Okay, there's other people there. Okay, what happens next? They're coming towards me. They don't look friendly. What happens next? I'm being assaulted, right? It's easy to do that. It's not hard to come up with a story that has strong emotional content. Are those memories? We don't know, but I mean, sometimes you can research it and find out, hey, that was actually a memory. But most of like that actually happened. There are cases of that. But most of the time, you're not going to know. Right? You'll see the best past life regressions, the most amazing stories, and the client comes out and says, I may have made that whole thing up. Right? In hypnosis, the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference from fact from fiction. If you're having a very vivid sexual fantasy, your body is going to release all sorts of hormones or whatever. You're going to have major physiological shifts and responses in your body. You did that with only your mind, right? If your partner or whomever who's not in the room with you, your mind, you don't even have to use your hands. You can use your mind to cause intense orgasmic feelings in your body, right? So your mind can do that. Don't ever underestimate the power of imagination coupled with emotion to cause physiological change and for you to feel like, wow, it was like I was living that. So most of these regressions, they're stories that we're not going to be able to prove, but the story itself reveals where the person is trapped. So for example, in a past life, you were really angry at someone and swore vengeance. You made a decision, I will attack this person, right? I will get revenge. And you have that anger and you're not going to let it go until you get revenge, because that's your mission, right? Like the Princess Bride, those of you remember that. So you've got this mission to fulfill to get vengeance. Now, in a past life, and I can say past life for those who want me to put that in quotes, in a past life, you made a decision to get revenge. When a decision is made in the psyche, it remains in place until you choose again. So by bringing this story to consciousness, and we realize there is a part of your psyche who decided that vengeance is mine, saith myself, right? And until I kill that person, I am not going to be happy. I won't be fulfilled. You made that decision. Well, now it's 600 years later and you still haven't found the guy or whatever. So at what point are you going to let that go? You're holding on to this anger. At what point do you want to let that go? You can only let it go in the now. You're angry now, so let it go now. But you may not even been aware that in your mind, deep in your subconscious, you had made choices that were causing you and others tremendous suffering. Maybe you made those choices in childhood and you concluded, no, this was a past life. You can come up with those stories. That's easy. But what's really valuable is the negative decisions we make and the negative emotions we hold on to and the false beliefs about ourselves we hold on to. Because if you want to be liberated from this whole cycle of drama and trauma and karma, all the spiritual teachings say there is a way out. So what matters is actually the way out. What matters is liberation or salvation. Let me share with you. I'll share with you another slide and then we'll talk about it. Liz said, how do you feel about past life that is an alien past life? Sure, it's really the same thing. We obviously could make up those stories. And it's possible that there are other beings who are not physical or who are interdimensional or multidimensional who interact with you and you're having memories of that. So whether it's a past life or alien past life. Let me say it this way. So the word alien might bring up the idea of like the grays with the almond eyes and the little mouth. And you can research my work in the Star Child Project if you want to know that I've been very well researched around the block on the alien topic. So you can check out the Star Child Project, Matthew Brownstein, if you want to know that I have some expertise in the field, sort of. Sort of meaning who knows anything about this stuff. All right, so alien doesn't just mean the gray aliens. It could just mean someone who's not from here. Alien just means someone who's not from here. Well, where's here? Well, you don't know where here is, right? We already established that, right? We don't know where we are. You can't say Earth because I could say, where's Earth? You could say, well, it's in the solar system. Oh, where's that? And then where's the Milky Way galaxy? So you don't know where you are, right? And you don't know when you are, right? Today is June 6, 2022. That's just that many years after Jesus was born. That doesn't mean anything in the cosmos of billions and billions of years. So you don't know when you are, where you are, how you are. You only know how you feel. You really don't know anything. So my experience has been when I'm out of my body, I absolutely encounter non-physical beings. And I can encounter physical beings. I can visit somebody who's in their body now, and I can encounter others who are not in bodies. Not all those beings are human, right? Because there's every kind of being you can imagine, right? It's a multiverse. How could there not be everything you could imagine and more than you can imagine? So can you have past lives with beings who are non-physical or interdimensional? Not necessarily saying just the gray aliens, right? But any being that you might have connections with, like call them like kind of soul connections, or your brotherhood or sisterhood, or like. So for me, I wouldn't call it alien. I would call it my home where I've been before on the astral plane, meaning I incarnated into this life, and that me existed before, but not physically. Maybe lifetimes before, but there's a me who dropped into this life. That me, I have explored memories of before this life, and the beings I interact with are not physical, right? They're functioning on the astral and higher planes, right? And I basically know myself to be one of those beings. That's why I speak the way I do, right? Because it's not just, I read a lot of this from a book. I hope I'm saying that for all of you. I hope you're not just reading this just from books. When you're exploring these, quote, past lives, when you're exploring the memories that come up and you're just unfolding your psyche. Those of you who know me know my mission with Anahat Education Group and onlinemonastery.com and my books. There's something, and so this is what I want to get to tonight. There's something inside of all of us that we call dharmic. It means purpose or mission. And I've explored the depth of my being, and I have found that there's something that doesn't go away. Number one, it's me, the soul. And number two, it's my mission. So there's two things we deal with here, karma and dharma. When we're caught on the wheel of karma, samsara, birth and death, cycles of suffering, this life or other lives or alien lives, you're caught up in cycles of suffering, and those lifetimes are karmic, meaning they are bound by cause and effect of suffering that you are making, and it's keeping you caught up in a wheel that you can get free of. The you who gets free while you're still here tends to have something very valuable and important to share with the world, something that only you can do and no one else can do it but you. That seems valuable, right? One of the secrets to becoming wealthy is find a need and fill it. Well, you have you're a need fulfiller, right? If you have a dharma, if you have a purpose and a mission, then you have something to do to help other people. That's valuable. They'll pay you for that, right? So hypnotherapy becomes an amazing profession because through it, a lot of people find their calling, their mission, their purpose. They're able to be spiritual. They're able to talk about these things. They're able to help liberate people's psyches without having to get 10 years of university degrees, right? You can just do non-therapeutic hypnosis and liberate people's psyches from suffering. If you realize you have those kind of tools in your bag of tricks, that's super powerful and it's exciting. So you move from a karmic life of suffering and cycles of pain to a dharmic life where you're free and it's not just about where do I go after this body, because who cares? You're still here now. And no matter how many past lives you explore, and no matter how much you think about where you're going to go in the future, all you know is you're here now and you're evolving. The real question to be asked is, what am I becoming? Because I already am, the essence of me is always the same. The essence of you is always the same. You're conscious. That energy plasma thing that is you, that being that is you, is love and joy. Now, if you're not enlightened to who you are now, you won't know this, but you'll know deep inside what I'm saying is true. Your core is peace. Your essence is love. Your inner being is pure bliss, and you are connected to a source that has never left you and you've never left. If we don't know that, then we're caught up pretty far in the past. Let me explore this, expand this so you guys can see what I'm teasing about. Willa said, I mean, no disrespect. The aliens that I believe is placed in our lives as draconian propaganda. I don't think they have ever been here. Okay, I'm not going to go into much of that. Let me just not go into much of that. But thank you, respectfully. And Willow said, I mean, no disrespect. A star child, if I'm spelling correctly, are they predenama? I don't know what that word is. Okay, but so the Star Child project is something I was involved in where we had a physical alien. Oh, no, seriously, the alien. We had a physical skull. It was a 900-year-old bone skull, and it really looks like a gray alien. So we started doing scientific research on what the thing was. We basically proved through the DNA and scientific method that it was human. But I always, and a lot of others, have our lingering doubts. That's what that's all about. I know people use like star seed and those words differently, but the Star Child project was that. Anyway, so this chart comes from a book by Meher Baba called God Speaks. Excuse me. And Meher Baba is very hard to define what such a being is, but you might say he was a saint or a deep mystic. He was somebody who spent enormous amounts of time in silence and solitude. He didn't speak for the majority of his life. And he was a super deep guy, to say the least, right? But such love, such compassion, such warmth. You know, these people who are truly liberated beings, they say the same thing. And this is what Meher Baba was explaining. I'm going to talk about this tomorrow night, the state of God and the beyond state. One of my Anahat meditation students asked the question, can you explain that? And can you explain divine mind? So we're going to cover that tomorrow night in Anahat meditation class. But the idea is this source is everywhere. It's not like it's just above, right? Consider that there's a consciousness, an I amness, a presence, an energy everywhere. It's unmanifest, it's non-dual, it's just one field of being. That being says, let there be light. And now we have everywhere there's energy, one all-pervasive energy. In Sanskrit, we call this Shiva and Shakti. Shiv is the underlying consciousness. Shakti is the energy or the power, the life force. We call it Purusha Prakriti, the consciousness and the energy that manifests into form. So that's what we're looking at here. But then look at the next form after light, descending down on the left side. Gaseous forms, turning into stone, metal, vegetable. It's an oversimplified diagram, and this book is super detailed about what's happening at each stage. But essentially what it says here, that you probably can't read, it says winding sanskars. The consciousness is having identification with form. It's evolving into better and better forms, right? Hey, now I'm a rock. That's pretty cool. Hey, there's a tree. I'd like to be a tree. And then it becomes a tree. Then the tree sees an insect walking around and says, wow, I'd like to be able to walk around. Becomes an insect. Insect is like, wow, that's a pretty big dog up there. I'd like to become a dog. And however that whole thing works. But you can't deny that there's something evolving, that there's life continuing to blossom. And we are life. And we want to improve, and we want to exist forever. So we are this, right? So you are this is called transmigration, this whole process. But then we get into reincarnation, where the consciousness from animal pretty much starts going into human, which explains a lot, right? Most human beings, I shouldn't say most, a lot of human beings are barely functioning above I don't know, I think animals are functioning better than a lot of people. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So you get to a point, though, where the being becomes more conscious, more awake, more self-aware. And at some point around here where he's a sage and he's on his knees, he's saying, what's going on? Who am I? Where did I come from? All right, you're asking the real questions, really the questions of life and death, and you're not satisfied with the belief system. You're seriously wanting to know. Then you've got a process that Mayor Baba talked about, and I promise you, I'm speaking from direct experience of this side as well. This isn't just theory. I've left my body, like I've said many, many times, and I've explored all of these levels and a lot of the beings, not all, because it's a huge universe, beyond just physical, right? But you can explore each of these planes that Mayor Baba was talking about. You'll keep coming back to your body while you still have a mission and a purpose, but you can absolutely leave your body and explore these higher realms. We call that ascending or ascension. It's getting liberated from the cycles of birth and death. It's getting free of karma. It doesn't mean you have to leave your body. That can be misleading because remember, the source consciousness is everywhere. So when you plunge deep inside yourself, you find yourself. And when you leave your body and go all the way to God beyond the beyond, you'll find yourself. And you'll find that the one infinite self and yourself are the same self, right? That there's one self, one consciousness evolving and doing this whole dance. And now somehow here you are in the middle of it. So honestly, I'm not such a fan of past life regression for exploring the past, because who cares what happened back then, right? You know, if you're looking at the screen, I don't know if you can see my cursor on YouTube. I don't think you see it. But my cursor, I'm hovering around looking at bird and animal and fish. Who cares? If you want to know what happened to a fish, go look at, go look in the lake. If you want to know what's happening with a horse, go to the stable. It doesn't matter that you were a horse way back when. Where's the value in that? It's entertainment if you do a regression about that. Now, if you still have energy caught up thinking you're a horse and you're mad at your owner because he didn't give you enough hay or whatever, well, you got to let that go. The only value is to let it go, to forgive, to move on. So we can use past life regression to look at the transmigrations, meaning the time that you were playing with stone, pretending to be a stone or metal or a worm or an insect or a bird, right? But now you're pretending to be human. So now we're talking about reincarnation. And most past life regression is going to the past lives when you were doing the human thing. The goal of all this, though, is to liberate you from the cycle of doing the human thing, because God forbid, you don't want to come back and do it again on this planet, right? What humans are doing now, I don't want to be back on this planet. But if you're in hell, build an ashram. So if you find yourself on a planet that's burning and people are shooting each other and there's pandemics, what are you going to do? Do your dharma, do your mission, get out there and heal the world, because it's either we're going to kill ourselves, it's going to be suicide, or it's going to be liberation. But it's that the choice is up to us to wake up to that. So it doesn't just mean that we're escaping out of our bodies up into heaven. It's about liberation here now. So this can be misleading to think that you have to escape this plane. My experience about what these teachings are really about is liberation of the false self right here now. So when you bring a negative memory to consciousness in hypnosis, you are integrating more of that being into the present moment. When you're very whole, like really fully here, all of your consciousness is here. My experience is then you actually have the ability to leave your body. If all of your psyche is here, you're not caught up in some fictitious back there, then your third eye starts opening, you start seeing these other dimensions, you'll see other beings from these other dimensions. I mean, this has been my experience, so what can I say? Like, these beings are there. They're just on the other side of a very thin veil, and the veil is inside of us. There's no like veil. It's just your mind is veiled. As your mind becomes liberated, your third eye starts opening, you start having a different kind of vision. You start realizing there are chakras, there are meridians, there are angels, there are aliens. Like, it's fine. It's no big deal. It makes sense. And it's been my experience that these things are real. Like, if you tell me that fairies aren't real, I would laugh at you. You might laugh at me for saying there are such things as fairies. I'm saying, well, I've seen them, so what am I supposed to do about that? Right? I think it's laughable to tell me I didn't see what I saw, both in my body and out of my body and in my third eye point. So, great. Somebody said, I love this question. What am I becoming? Thank you. We'll talk about that a little bit more before I wrap it up for tonight. Will the Arahant meditation class online be recorded for later viewing? Yes. So they'll be posted at onlinemonastery.com. And we're going to do it through this same, we'll post it to our YouTube channel for sure. So on YouTube, or just go to onlinemonastery.com. So yeah, thank you. So let's talk about a little bit more the practical value of this type of profession, or just engaging with topics of past life regression. The topic of who am I becoming? Remember that the consciousness identified with a form really believes it is this form. So when you have the time of bodily death occur, you really want to be asking yourself, who do you think you are? If you think you're a dog, you can reincarnate as a dog. I'm laughing when I say it, right? Because you usually don't go backwards. You actually kind of can go backwards in this model. And not saying dogs are less evolved, just saying you have now developed a level of consciousness and thoughts and feelings and perceptions and wants and desires and hopes and dreams. You can't go back to just putting all that in a dog body. You wouldn't be able to drive a car. This you who wants to drive a car and go see things, that you want to consider continues on like now, right? You're still here now. You're still continuing on now. So you don't have to worry about what happens when your body dies. In Zen, they say, how do you prepare for death? Prepare for living. How do you prepare for living? Prepare for dying. A Zen practitioner is preparing for dying at every moment because you're literally dying at every moment. Your false self should be shattered at every moment. And then the real you, well, you're there, but there's all this stuff evolving and changing and morphing. Like, have you ever noticed Black Elk Speaks in his book? He said I forget the name of the book. I think it's called Black Elk Speaks. He said the Great Spirit wants diversity. Have you noticed? Right? There's a lot of diversity. Conservative minds tend to have a problem with that because they want it to be just one way. And that's usually, they've done brain studies on, like, the very conservative mind is a fear-based mind. A more liberated mind is a mind that's based on love and is based on diversity. And why do people who are more liberal, more liberated from a system, talk more about love and socialism? And you kind of get the sense of where I would go for voting, but I don't want to get into politics, right? Just the idea that there's a certain type of mind that honors diversity. So now, who are you? We don't want to ever judge in any way, because when the mind gets liberated, it's free to recreate itself every moment in the greatest way it can conceive of itself. So the way I just, not talk so much about me, but to give you guys a hint of what you can do to take away from this class. So think about, if you left your body, what would you see if you looked at a mirror? Now, your soul, you don't see you, right? You don't have a form. But you, when you leave your body, leave with your astral and, well, let's just say simply your astral body, meaning there's going to be a form. It's another vehicle. It's called the astral body. Or you could say the etheric body as well in this context. Two different bodies, essentially, but they're like those Russian dolls, like one inside the other. So when you get out of your body, you could see yourself etherically or astrally, right? But I want to keep this simple. So what would you see if you saw your, quote, ghost body? What would you see if you saw your spirit body? That's who you think you are. Who you are is the pure consciousness or soul. But you have this vehicle, and your vehicle is your soul, or your soul's body, your astral body, your etheric body, are a reflection of your thoughts, right? So who do you think you are? Right? If I say I am a dog, that astral body could start taking the form of dog. What am I going to be in my next life? Probably a dog. But again, it doesn't work that way when you're doing human. You're self-conscious now. You're in here. Now that you know you're here, the question is, what are you becoming? So for me, if you look on the screen, the angel up in the top corner there, who's moving up into the light, but it's still here being of service, that's how I visualize myself. I see my astral form with wings. I see a sacred geometrical grid of a star tetrahedron. I visualize myself as love and compassion and wisdom and service. Like, who am I becoming? Only the highest, most greatest ideas of myself that I can conceive of. To do the other is to devolve or to get really bummed out and depressed and miserable and fear-based. If you keep visualizing, it's not just positive thinking. It's saying, who am I in my essence? Oh, I'm love. Well, let me think those thoughts. Who am I in my essence? I'm bliss. Let me think those thoughts. Now you're involving. Now you're moving back towards spirit. You're identifying with spirit. not matter. So the who am I question is crucial if you're a hypnotherapist doing past life regression. And this is how I teach it in our school. It's not just about the past life exploration. It's about the processing that we do after the past life that helps to liberate the person from the past life. If all you do is past life tourism, people pay you to show them past lives, you could be actually doing your client a disservice. If you want to help them in the highest way spiritually, you help them to question, who are you? I know you thought you were an ancient barbarian who used to kill a lot of people and you deserve to suffer for eternity. Okay, well, maybe you're wrong. Maybe that's who you thought you were, but it's never who you were, right? You're always soul. You're always spirit. You've never been a barbarian, even if you had a lifetime as barbarian. You've always been the soul, but you forget who you are. As you're remembering who you are now, you're becoming free. You're being set free. And like literally, there's freedom and not freedom. There's like really being bound to your karma or being free to live a life of loving dharmic service. To create a beautiful life for yourself and others. But it doesn't mean, again, you have to escape this body. But I'm telling you from my experience, the more whole you get, the more you have access to these higher levels. Great. So thank you, Dee, for your questions. Hello, Matthew, who said, in researching near-death experiences, some people having experiences of going to places like hell. What are your thoughts on heaven and hell? Sure. So Muhammad Iqbal, the Islamic philosophers, forget all his credentials, but Muhammad Iqbal said, heaven and hell are not places, they're states of mind. So if you think about when a body dies and the consciousness continues on, nothing really changes because only the body died. Death doesn't solve anything. All right, suicide is never an answer. I'm not saying it's sinful to commit suicide, but why is it not an answer to your suffering? Because the consciousness and all of its pain, Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. I'm calling it the astral body, with all of its pain, continues on. Your mind and emotions continue on. Now, will you be free of physical suffering? For a while, but if you reincarnate, right? So wouldn't it be horrible to you see the Game of Thrones episode where the guy was tied up and he was being tortured? Absolutely horrible. And then the guy takes him out and says, yeah, I'm bringing you to the place you're going to be safe. But then he let him back and he was up there on the cross thing again. Could you imagine like being Jesus? And they're like, oh, good, that's over. But then they do it again to you. That's what reincarnation is. That's hell. All right, living in a world that's burning with pandemics. This is as dense as it gets, everybody. Look at the chart. According to Mayor Baba, you are at the bottom of the food chain right now. You are living in a body that could suffer a horrible pain, and it's really kind of disgusting inside. Have you ever looked at your internal organs? Right? Ever like look at a cadaver? Like it kind of is hell. So, but what happens to a soul whose mind and emotions are in a really negative space when they leave the body? They can absolutely experience like energy. So what is hell? It's your state of mind and then law of attraction bringing to you an exact reflection of you. So if you are a sinful, hateful, murdering consciousness, you know, the energy you're holding on to, you leave your body, guess who's going to be visiting you? I can't speak from experience because you guys know me. I've dedicated my life to love. And when I've left my body, I've only had angelic type encounters. However, I've read a lot of the literature. Read Robert Monroe. In his first book, Journeys Out of the Body, I think it is, and then Far Journey, and then Ultimate Journey. So yeah, Journeys Out of the Body, Robert Monroe. His first book, he wasn't spiritually aware necessarily. He was a really great guy, but he didn't do a lot of the inner work that a lot of us do. So when he got out of his body, his first experience was like being attacked by all these like little beings. We call those entities. So are there negative entities? I think most of us who have been around the block and this stuff say, yeah, sure, why not? Right? If consciousness is the underlying ground of all being, then anything is possible. So why couldn't there be negative entities out there? Why couldn't there be whole places with a lot of negative entities? Well, there's places on this planet with a lot of negative entities. And what we say in metaphysics is as above, so below. So if you've got a hellish realm up here, it's going to manifest down here. When you leave your body and you're in a hellish state, why couldn't you go to a hellish realm? But it's not like there's a God throwing you into hell. You're creating your own karma. You're making these decisions that lead you to darkness or to light. You're choosing fear or love. You're choosing spirit or ego. The choice is still ours. And we can spend a lot of time delaying time or wasting time, meaning you can keep the cycle of birth and death going for many lifetimes, but only a fool waits until their next life to do what they can do now, which is about reinventing yourself now, getting liberated now. Then heaven is not a place, although the same topic relates. This is what I just said about hell. Right? There are places that are hellish on this plane and other planes, although I don't go to them, right? Hopefully you're just not hanging out in those places. But if you're attracted to those kind of energies, if you attract people to you or beings to you who have those kind of energies, it could be hellish. Heaven is a liberated soul right here now who's generally always happy, who's generally consistent and equimonious and free and joyful. And when that person leaves their body and you know how to focus on God, you know how to focus on love and angels, well, guess where you're going? Or you're going where you can best be of service because you don't even care, because wherever you go, you're in bliss anyway. So a liberated soul doesn't have to be anywhere. Your soul is liberated. You are the light of the world, right? You are bliss. That's heaven. I mean, I sit in my meditation cushion in heaven. I'm going to make this bigger now, and then we'll be starting to wrap it up. So to me, heaven is just really more and more just every moment. But I get in the meditation cushion. It's so much bliss. When I leave my body and I just focus on the source of that bliss, it's just soul immersed in light and bliss and love. And when you've done that enough, you're not worried about what happens when the body dies. You're just like, oh, okay, I know where I'm going. You put your attention where you want to go. But remember, this who am I becoming theme says, well, kind of what are you going to look like when you show up and let's say you meet your family and friends again later? What are they going to see? I mean, they'll know it's you. One of you said, like, soul recognizes soul. But you can have an astral form. Is it going to look male or female? Is it going to wear what kind of clothing? Like when you visualize yourself, not your soul, but your astral being, what do you see? So if you see a more angelic being, well, then you're going to attract more angelic beings, and likes like. They say opposites attract, but really in metaphysics, likes attract, right? Law of attraction. So it's just about knowing who we are and moving more and more into what we want to become. Remembering, if you're an eternal being, if you're immortal, then your thoughts really are important. All right, thanks. And then Bill said, Ramana Maharshi said, the question, who am I, is not really meant to get an answer. The question is really meant to dissolve the questioner. You got it. Thanks, Bill. In the state of samadhi, we call it in Sanskrit turiya. Turiya is literally, it's called the fourth state, but not to go into that whole teaching, but the state of turiya is called the questionless state of mind. So thank you, Bill. So when you keep asking, who am I? Who am I? One of our lovely presenters at the recent IAIH conference, Ashley Caputo, is doing such beautiful work in the world and studying a lot of in-depth yogi philosophy. She had us at the conference just over and over again. She did it for 3 minutes, but she says they'll do it for like 30 plus minutes. But really, you can just be doing it a lot. You're just asking over and over again, who am I? Who am I? And every time your mind answers the question, let it go, right? So if you're like, oh, well, I am bad, let it go. Oh, I am good, let it go. Don't be attached to the positive or the negative, right? So your mind can go dualistic. I'm good, I'm bad. I'm a saint, I'm a sinner. Don't do any of that. So every time you say, who am I? Don't trust anything your mind says, because when your mind gets totally quiet, you're what's left. However, it's not that you doesn't have a mind and that you doesn't have emotions. You can just get to the core of the you, which is just conscious, right? So like Ramana Maharshi, just conscious, just being the light. That's all you need to do. However, I'm talking to a lot of us who are still getting to that state where we're very responsible for what's happening with our mind and emotions. However, you can turn over that responsibility to superconscious mind or the Holy Spirit or divine mind, because how do you even know what your best interests are? A Course in Miracles says, I do not know my own best interests. Right? So as we're exploring the altered state, we can misuse it by looking at the past way too much and unnecessarily and creating stories about multidimensional beings that don't actually really lead us that far. But if you're talking about these topics, at least you're thinking about the immortal nature of the soul, which is a super valuable thing to consider, right? So in A Course in Miracles, it says, where's the value in reincarnation and past life regression? It says there really isn't any, because you were never born once or many times, right? You are the soul. You can observe bodies, you can hang out with bodies, but you've never been a body. So the Course says the real value in this type of work is to help to strengthen the idea of the eternal nature of spirit, right? Because if you're an eternal being, wouldn't it be good to know that instead of the idea that I will die in X number of years and cease to exist and that's the end? That is a very miserable way to be, right? And I'm not just saying I'm positive thinking because you're afraid of death. I'm saying really exploring the truth of who we are. Just say, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And what everyone who does that discovers is the answer is awesome. And because the people who discover the answer keep saying the same thing consistently over and over again, peace, love, joy, oneness, divine guidance, bliss, purpose, mission, out-of-body experiences, pure potential, like just follow those who are sane, right? Like when you hear someone talking sanity, you go with those who are sane rather than those who are contradicting themselves and insane, right? So the great saints and sages have shown me like a roadmap that I've infused into our hypnotherapy work so that we have a solid way to use our hypnotherapy techniques to not only treat illness, but to truly liberate anybody who's ready to pop, right, to wake up to who they really are. All right, great. So thank you. And then Matthew said, are each of our consciousnesses unique, or is it all the same since we are all one? Beautiful. So my experience for myself, out of the body and whatnot, and then everything I've studied over all the years, and again, there's been like a serious lifetime of study of that, is that there is one underlying consciousness. And in Sanskrit, we can call that Purush. I gave you that term, or Shiv. That in the very beginning, if you want to look at the chart here, the chart can help to understand that. God beyond the beyond is one undifferentiated consciousness. It is not manifested. There's no many. There's only one. And there's no souls. There's no individualized essences. However, when God says, let there be light, in that moment of creation, which is happening all the time, right? It's not like it happened just in the past. Creation is always happening. In that moment of creation, the sonship is created. God's child is created. God's child is one, meaning we are one consciousness, but we start to become differentiated so that we can be lovers and God can be the beloved, meaning the source is the beloved now because there's lovers. And now that there's a lot of lovers, we can love each other, which is cool because when have you ever been like really, really alone? Like, at a time in your life, like no spouse, no significant other, maybe not a lot of friends. Like I've done this very intentionally, just intense solitude, intense silence. And one of the main things, if you ever watch those movies like Castaway, where Tom Hanks is on the island by himself, why did he need Wilson? Because being alone is really rough, right? You don't know yourself without relationship. And that's what Source was. Source was like, I don't know myself without mini-me's. I don't know myself without other children of me, without lovers, without souls. So the idea of souls are the differentiated us-is, the you. That essence in Sanskrit is called Jivatma, or the individualized essence. It's not its own creator, which is really something to think about. In A Course in Miracles, it teaches... technology. Caught the thought for a sec. A Course in Miracles teaches you are not your own creator. You are not your own creator. So who is that you? That's the individualized essence. And that's the soul that can recognize soul. And that soul can recognize its source. Listen to the word that one of our classmates used. Recognize, to recognize, to know again. That word re there, to know again. All right, recognize. So when we recognize each other, it's like, if you're out of your body and you see your mom, you're like, Mom, like who that being is. There is a signature to each soul, like its own fragrance, its own perfume, its own blossoming of who it is, right? There's like the individualized essence, which is definitely identifiable as unique. But when that individualized essence takes the journey all the way back into source, the drop, for a while, beyond time, the drop becomes the ocean again. So can you experience the non-differentiated oneness? Absolutely. Where it's just I as the drop become the ocean. This can only happen, we'll talk about it tomorrow night because one of the students asked, that can only happen out of the body. You can't experience, I mean, you can go into the deepest samadhi in your body, here and now, but there is a mystical experience that where you do leave your body and you go all the way back into God beyond the beyond. That you is an individualized essence that is knowable by other individuals. But we're all part of that one sea. It's just like drops in the ocean. But every drop is unique. But when the drop merges back into the source, again, in a transcendent out-of-body type experience, then there's only God. And the saints who come back and say that, like Al-Hallaj of Sufism, he said, I am the supreme reality. I am that. Now, you don't normally say those things, and he got in trouble for doing so. But generally, the teaching is, yes, we're one and we're many, and eternally one and many. And then, like, how do you live if you know that's true? Like, wow, we're eternally one and eternally many, and I'm eternal. Then your choices really do matter a lot. Great. He said, I love this. Thank you for the spiritual conversation. My pleasure. Thank you, Matthew, for the questions. Let me answer Dee's question, and we'll start to wrap it up. He said, as a hypnotherapist, is it important to study past life work like Dolores Cannon or Brian Weiss? I would just say it's important to study what you feel inspired to study. The greatest teacher is your own soul, right? Or the Holy Spirit within you, whatever you want to call that. So when you go into deep hypnosis in yourself, you will hear, I promise you it's there, and it's in everybody, there's another voice. It's not your ego, it's not a devil, it's not an entity. It's the voice for God. It's the voice of the Holy Spirit. That is the ultimate teacher, and revelation happens inside of you. So when you have all this cool in meditation, all these huge downloads dropping in, you're like, whoa, wow. Like, you are so knowledgeable and so wise. It's your own soul that you want to tap into. And when that being says, wow, I want to read that book. Like, wow, Dolores Cannon, she wrote a lot of cool books. If you feel inspired to read that, I think you should. Brian Weiss, like, sure. So as a hypnotherapist, should you study that stuff? The Dolores Cannon material is usually considered quite woo-woo and out there, but I can tell you that's not my judgment. It's really the out there kind of stuff. Maybe it is my judgment, but I respect the work. I'm not trained in her model, but we have a lot of students who've come into the school from her work, realizing, oh, I don't have the level of training that I thought I needed to be a professional in this field. So our training is a good, solid foundation of state license, real hypnotherapy education. Then there's other stuff, and Brian Weiss teaches classes as well. Brian knows of us. His wife, Carol, has referred people to this school. So there's value in studying from everybody, but you also, one of the better teaching, or a really good teaching, is dig one really deep hole. Don't just dabble in a lot of different philosophies. If you master interpersonal hypnotherapy and everything I'm teaching, I believe like pretty much everything we need is in this curriculum to do this kind of work. But if you want to go more into the past lives, the life between life, the multi-dimensions, the channeling phenomena, yeah, the Dolores Cannon stuff is that direction. Brian Weiss's material, I haven't read a lot of his stuff, and I haven't attended his workshops or done his specific teacher training, but there's going to be value in that for sure. I would just say, you listen to your own inner guidance, and then also be sure to support state licensed education. If all we do in the field of hypnosis is go to these unlicensed workshops, because the Dolores Cannon stuff and the Brian Weiss stuff, they're not state licensed schools. We are lowering the standards of hypnotherapy if we make those our primary training. If we use those as an adjunct to really solid state license training, like with real career schools, then we're helping to raise the standards of our profession. We're getting the training we need of ethics and law and proper treatment protocols, scope of practice assessment protocols. I mean, you need to know a lot to be a really good, solid hypnotherapist. And we have to protect the profession. If we keep the standards low, we're going to lose the profession. So I support anything my students who go through our school want to study, if it resonates with them. But I also ask everybody to really support state license training as the core of really good hypnotherapy as a profession. All right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being here. Feel free to email or to put in chat pod or comments on YouTube any questions, and then I'll be happy to answer them in the future. We'll be here next Monday. I forget the topic, but it's coming up in all of our newsletters. So if you're not getting our Monday newsletter, that always announces the next class. Reminders come out on YouTube, so you can even sign up for those reminders to know what the Monday night upcoming class is. And then every Tuesday night, at least for June 2022, we'll be doing the Arahant Meditation Support Group. So we'll go maybe even deeper into spiritual teachings then. All right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being here, watching this recording. Feel free to like and subscribe. Helps more people to get to know about us. And have a wonderful night.